Welcome. We are here with Mark Goldfinger. He is the GM and head of North America at Mindspace, which is one of my favorite co-working brands. And the GWA just hosted a happy hour at the Mindspace in San Francisco. And I got to meet Mark in person at the immersive event in San Francisco, which was quite a treat. So, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was great to meet in person after being on I don't know, 4 or 5 Zoom calls at
I
that
know,
point. So
totally. Yeah,
nice. Also, Gio and I got to connect on Zoom calls and then we got to finally meet in person. It's like, you always you meet in person after all of these and you're like, we're just really good friends at this point. And that's really nice to have. It's not like, hi, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you.
totally. You've done some time in the industry because you were at
I
WeWork
have.
for 6 years.
Sounds like he's done jail time or something.
I know, right?
I know it does. I
Do you have any
wonder
jailhouse tattoos, Mark?
what
Come
is.
clean.
Look, thankfully the camera is only from the bust up, so you can't see the jailhouse tattoos. And I will say during my ex WeWork days, they allowed me to have a 15-minute break period where I could hang out in the yard as long as I was still closing deals. So it was, some same.
Too funny. Although we were just talking about internship season, and now I'm seeing Deutsche Bank year on your resume.
I did a year at Deutsche. It's kind of like I did a year upstate, before I got transferred back.
Totally.
I did. I
We were talking about how, I don't know. Oh, I mean, in a roundabout way, we got to this topic, which is that you're more likely to get struck by lightning than to get an internship at Goldman Sachs these days. So
It's almost like in the Chick-fil-A franchise.
no, seriously. Wait, I'm going to start with, how did you end up at WeWork? What was your...
Yeah, so it's actually a really, really cool story. So right after high school, I learned about this
We're going
MBA
back.
program.
I like it.
I love
like
it. Yeah, let's get deep. So while I was in high school, I learned about a master's program that was a 12-month program where you lived in London, worked for a tier 1 financial institution, took classes on the weekends at nights. And then 4 months after that, you lived in Thailand and Bangkok, taking classes and writing your graduate thesis. You didn't need to do the GMATs. And at the end of the day, you graduated, and if you passed, you got your MBA. And I was like, hold on a second. I could live in London. I could get real life work experience. I could go hang out in Thailand. I have to write a thesis. I can figure it out. I don't need to take a standardized test and I could get an MBA. I'm in. Like, where do I sign? And I graduated in December and the program started in March. And I went on a ski trip with one of my oldest buddies and a few of his guy friends to Tahoe and Utah. And we're in Utah. And we go to the lodge, we grab some beers. And my buddy, who he had just graduated college a little bit before me, he was working at a real estate fund, doing a little brokerage on his own. And he starts talking about a deal that he's trying to broker. And some super tall guy comes up to us, long hair, Israeli accent, looks at my buddy and goes, "You're in real estate?" And we look around like, who is this dude? Look, man, we're talking, we're having a beer. Thank you. And he asks my buddy a couple of questions. We answer, and he goes, "All right, well, you're not ready to come work for me, but when you are, give me a call." And he puts down his card, look at the card. His name's Adam Neumann. Took my buddy about 15 months, give or take, to start actually go work for him. And I came back from London. I went to London. I went to Thailand, came back from grad school. And then I was working for an advertising agency out in New York for a little while. And my buddy was like, "Mark, you got to come check this company out."
Do you remember that really guy from the lodge?
Yeah.
It's going pretty well.
I've been working for him and we were communicating the entire time, right? And he's like, "This is actually a lot of fun. There's a cool company." I mean, he was one of the first 75 people there. Wow. So it was we had less than 12,000 members when I joined, and I go tour it. I toured the third location, which was open up on Barrett Street. I'm like, this looks like a really cool environment. I was also working out of an old school office park in New Jersey. So I was like, whoa, this is super creative. I want to get involved in this. I started looking at open roles, and there was a community manager role. And at the time I read it, I was like, I just had my MBA. I was like, I'm not interested in some CM role. If I knew what I knew now, I would have jumped at it in a heartbeat because of what our CMs were doing at the time. But I waited a little bit longer, and then all of a sudden they started to expand, and this role came up to like be like an expansion lead. The role was living out of your suitcase and on a plane, and every 3 months you went to a different market to help launch WeWork from a sales, marketing, and community perspective. I was 25 at the time. I was like, this sounds awesome. Let's do this. Went for an interview, had a ton of fun, did my training in New York, and then moved out to London to help open up the third and fourth location. Went to Austin, Texas to help with the expansion at 600 Congress from 1 floor to 2 floors. Then went out to Denver to help open up our first 2 locations in Denver at the Triangle Building and down in Lodi. And then like I got on the phone with my boss. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was like, look, like this has been a lot of fun. I can't do this anymore. I need to be back in New York. Like I'm 26 now, thinking I was an adult. I was like, I need my personal life. They're like, all right, we'll figure it out. Come back and we'll find something for you to do. We like you. Like, let's make this happen. I come back. I take some job on like the marketing and advertising team to help build brand awareness. I think I had this role within WeWork for like less than 36 hours. I come in one morning. I walk past the executive's office. He's like, hey, like we need you to go back out to London. I'm like, I just moved back to New York. I can't go back to like, we just had this conversation. Fast forward, I end up in London for 5.5 years. It didn't work with that girl. It's unfortunate, but it's okay. I'm married now with a 1-year-old. She's not my wife.
Okay.
I'm very, very happily married now. And I ended up helping. I was our first sales director for the UK, help grow the build the real estate or the sales and community and building sites to about 20 plus locations around the UK, and then help our expansion throughout the rest of Europe. And then ultimately ended up in Southeast Asia for a while. I was in Singapore. I ended up living in Shanghai for about 6.5 months as our head of sales for Greater China. Ultimately, then I had to move back home. I went through some family stuff. My father had passed away. Right after that, I went to Europe. I went to China. My mom was in California. I was like, I kind of ran from my problems for like 10 months, if you will, or a year, and just like buried my head into work. And at that point, we were working 36-hour days, 18 days a week, if you will. And finally, I was like, I need to come back home. Came back home, worked out of our headquarters, ran global expansion for us, and worked through like distressed markets across the US for a while. Ultimately, rode the ups and downs, saw the failed IPO, wanted to stick it out for at least another year, and ended up sticking it out through COVID. And then at the end of 2020, I was just like, I want to take a pause from this. A very good friend and mentor of mine had started a new company, an Amazon aggregator. And he was like, come join. They, 4 employees at the time. He's like, come be number 5, run business development, marketing, drive the culture for us. I ended up doing that for about 3 years. We grew the company to 200 people and 175 million in revenue, which was a ton of fun. But ultimately I was like, I missed managing large teams and like being back in like the real estate and like the co-working and the community space. Mindspace reached out and they were like, hey, we're looking for a new GM for North America. We know it's untapped. We want to see it continue to grow. We're looking for someone to kind of help take that charge. I think I did like 11 interviews, and every interview I felt like it was just like I was already part of the company. I was already talking strategy with them, expansion, sales, growth, hospitality, community experience, what makes us different than the Industriouses or the WeWorks or the Regises or the Venture X's, et cetera. And here we are, like a little over a year later. It's been a ton of fun.
Wow. That's a lot. And that's awesome. I mean, the way that you met Adam was pretty crazy.
Totally.
And not surprising. Crazy, not surprising, right? I mean,
It was
was
awesome.
he wearing shoes?
He was. So he was wearing shoes. I think he
Never
wore
heard
them
of
for
it.
the majority. He wore them for like the first kind of like from like 2012 through probably like 2017. I think he really embraced the footwear, and then it kind of started to die down a little bit. But I got to say, I think like I think that's like top 2 best Adam moments for me. I think the other moment, which is like really personal, but really fun to share, was WeWork had these awards. They were the founder awards. They gave out 3 or 4 of them every single year at Summit, which was, we had summer camp, which everyone has seen the documentaries on, et cetera. We'll talk about that later. And then in January, they had Summit, which was no members, just employees. And the friend who had brought me onto WeWork my first year there actually won the Founders Award. And I was like, oh my God, like I want to strive for this. This is incredible. And in the year of 2017, so January of 2018, I actually was fortunate and lucky enough to win it. And I wasn't able to be there to collect it because it was the day that I was actually burying my father. So Adam like gets on stage, puts my photo up and announces that I won it and explains to the entire company why I wasn't there to like accept the award, ends up giving everyone my phone number and tells them to like text me and say like they miss me or they're with me or they're sending love or saying something. And he's like, and he just has this whole speech. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we'll break Mark's phone. Maybe we'll break Apple. Maybe we'll break the universe, but we're going to find out. And like, let's do it.
Break the
like,
universe?
Who knows? And it was just like such an Adam moment. And like, I eventually turned my phone on and I had over 3,000 messages. And over the course of the next like 3 years, and I have this photo of like Adam and Miguel doing a selfie with like the entire like company behind them, like just like saying thank you to me, which is one of the most touching moments, like and humbling moments of my life. And what was super cool was as I continued to like build out these different teams at WeWork throughout the kind of next 4 years or 3 years, I would meet someone and I'd be like, hey, let me get your phone number. And like, we could talk about the new position. And they would give it to me. And the last message I would have a message from them. And it was like, hey, Mark, you don't know me, but like, I've heard about your dad and I'm really sorry. And this happened to like, not only someone I was hiring in New York, this happened to me like when I went out to help our India team, when I went out to help our China team. And it was like, that was like what also got me really excited about the company and like why I really also wanted to like continue to stay in the space and drive everything forward was like, we talk a lot about community with you guys and like, that's like true community. So it was very cool. It was a really, really unbelievable 6 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything. You worked and you definitely lost years off your life, not only from the hardworking, but from the having fun. But here we are, and we're doing it at Mindspace in a little bit of a different way, but it's been an incredible year, and this team's awesome.
You know, that's such a great story because we hear obviously the Adam Neumann stories, and you know, I have this conversation all the time with people, and it throws them off, is because I'm like, you know, every CEO and founder is a narcissist and manipulative, right? But there's a negative connotation behind it, but there's also a beautiful side to those things too, right? Is your ability to manipulate is also your ability to inspire and to motivate and encourage, right? And so I think sometimes when stories like Adam's come up, people get stuck on that, right? Versus going, I mean, what a beautiful, touching moment.
Yeah.
That it's not even like you're telling me he texted you or he had his assistant text you, which is what people would probably expect. He literally had these words to everyone in what an amazing moment, right? And so I think that's the beautiful part of leaders like that, right? Is they have the ability to do those things when they tap into those things. And I mean, like right now with the whole flow thing, people are like, I don't even know what I'm investing in or what it is, but he has this salesmanship to him that you got to see firsthand. And there's a beautiful side to that allows for him to touch and inspire people the same way as now you're getting to do. We got to see you do it with your team. We got to see you do it with other people. You did it with us, right? I mean, I felt like we were longtime friends when we met and we'd had, you know, one Zoom call or two and it, you know, but the exchange and everything else. So thanks for sharing that with us.
No, of course. And I don't know if we're going live with the video or just for you guys, but this is a photo. This is a photo that someone took of Adam and Miguel taking the selfie for me. It was just, awesome. It was really, and you're right? Everyone hears these stories about him and they think this narcissist, but like there are these true human, genuine like moments. Like he didn't have to do it. He could have just been like, he can't be here today for personal reasons. Thank you. Next. Right. And it became this like whole like 10-minute thing that was just like beyond touching.
Well, and the three of us do this. And that's really what this podcast is about, is we're connecting people and we're hearing stories, and it's about the heart to heart connection. It's our industry, right? And so it's funny. I think I've said this, but I met with the Rome team and we're trying to figure out immersive in Atlanta, and they've got an incredible network in Atlanta. They've got one location here, but part of what I was sharing with them is I'm like, how do we get you guys involved, right? Because we want you guys to bring value, but we also want to share all the value that all our people have, right? And so that's what I love about our industry. It's the passion, the heart, right? I reached out to you guys about doing the happy hour there, and it was never question or doubt. It was like, okay, we're in. What are we doing? And it was then getting the right people on, and what does it look like, and what do we need, and all those things. And so I think that's what I love about our entire industry, right? You've got the exceptions with IWG and some of these things that they don't need to show up, but I mean, we're integrating more and more, even the bigger players.
But you also have you have X, I, and G leadership that have actually gone on to do their own co-working because they wanted to incorporate the community and the collaboration to it, right? And I think that's also really fascinating to see. And I think something that's changed in the last, let's call it 6 years, probably like right after the failed IPO, I felt like a really massive shift. And then obviously post-COVID. But for so long, competitors were so against each other and they wouldn't chat. And then all of a sudden now it's like, I'm sitting down with CEOs and GMs of other competitors, right? It's like at our GWA, in San Francisco, it was like Elton and I, yes, we have a relationship because, we work together at WeWork, but we were hanging out, talking about what we're seeing in the market, sharing insight. And it wasn't like, well, I'll tell you, but you have to tell me type thing. I was like, dude, like, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? How are you combating this? Oh, I'm facing it this way. It's like, there's so much room in this ecosystem for there to be multiple players to win. And that's a really, really exciting ecosystem to be in, right? You don't need to be cutthroat and aggressive anymore just to succeed. And I think all the larger players have seen that now, which is just at the end of the day, the members and everyone who's coming into the co-working spaces get to win because they get to find the best place that fits them and where they're going to come in and be most inspired to do their best work and get their company to that next level. And if we have a member that can do that and grow their company, I'm super happy. I know my team then did their job.
And I think that's the amazing part, right? Is if you win, we all win, right? And so it's and that's the beauty. Jamie and I get to do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was like when different Jamie from Industrious made the official sale and completely went through with the CBR, we were all excited. I was super excited for him because he's been hustling and working super hard for that deal. And I remember when Industrious first started and we were going head to head with them, especially in London. But then also it signified to the market that co-working is real. Everyone needs to get on board, right? People want flexible, agile office space. This is a real concept that has been accelerated through the act of COVID. Unfortunate, of course, but the benefit for all of us is people don't need 50,000 square feet of real estate on their overhead anymore. And there are incredible options for them to turn to. They just need to know where to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the great part about it. Yeah, Jamie, you have an operations question. She's got a professional operations question. No, typically I can see her wheels turning and I'm like, I didn't say something.
No, I was just thinking Mark, for people who don't know Mindspace, because Mindspace is newer in the States. You have
for sure
locations in Manhattan and Brooklyn and Washington, DC.
Yeah. So we have 6 locations. So Mindspace started right around the same time WeWork did. We just last year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. People know us internationally.
Yeah.
We have 50 locations globally.
50. I know that's the thing. I feel like you don't always pop up. That's why I love you're here and you're engaging because I've loved.
Me too.
I'm trying to think. Maybe it was the San Francisco location that I first saw. I mean, I loved it. It's been one of my favorite locations for.
Good.
Since I first saw it, and I'm excited that you're here. But I do feel like a lot of people don't know. I mean, you're one.
And that's what we're working on, right? So we have 2 million square feet under lease across the globe. Germany is our largest market, followed by Israel, and then the US is quickly becoming the third. I obviously want it to be number one. true American mentality here.
You want that award.
Absolutely. Always want to strive for something. You got to continue chasing, Jamie. But so we came to the US in 2018. We opened up San Francisco, which is our first location. It's hard to believe, like unbelievable to believe that it's, 8 years now, and the building is 96% occupied. Great team, great space, incredible
I was so
location.
glad to hear that about San Francisco, because I remember when I asked you, I
It's
was
coming
like,
back.
he's gonna say like 60, and you were like, no, we're good. I was so relieved.
Occupancy is increasing, desk rate is increasing. It's been a lot of fun. And then we quickly came to the East Coast, and we opened up Washington, DC and Philadelphia. And then, we kept our heads down, made it through COVID. And then in the last 18 months, maybe 2 years now, we doubled in size, going from 3 locations to 6 locations. So we opened up 2 locations in Miami, 1 downtown, and then 1 in Wynwood. And then we opened up our first New York City location, which is in Williamsburg. And now I am actively trying to get us into Manhattan. I selfishly live on the Upper East Side. I would love to stay in my borough when I am working. But, at the end of the day, I think our 25 Kent location is probably one of my favorites. So I definitely don't mind commuting to Williamsburg. But for those of you who aren't as familiar as others, we're a boutique, agile, flexible workspace provider. We provide office space for companies ranging anywhere from, 2 to 3 people, all the way up to full floor enterprises. We have some, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Barclays. We have, all of those big players have come in and out of our space, Monday.com. And now we're continuing to grow the business. We're about 85% occupied across the US and quickly continuing to scale.
Well, continuing to scale, what does that mean? You working on anything in Dallas?
Texas? Not Dallas. The US? Ooh, tell me where are we going? I don't know, Giovanni. What are you finding for me? But no, we're definitely, I want us to grow, right? And I think the momentum over the last 18 months has shifted drastically in some of these markets. New York and San Francisco specifically, vacancy rates, if you look at Manhattan, are very low. Park Avenue vacancy rate has dropped to below 5%. Hudson Yard vacancy rate has dropped to below 7%. These are numbers that no one has seen in close to a decade. People in Midtown are starting to push more towards Third Avenue, which was something you never wanted to really do from a commercial real estate perspective. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and people are also coming back to work. Everyone understands the value of connecting with not only their team members, but also creating an environment for your employees to interact with other companies, right? When I'm hiring, or when I'm trying to think of what I could provide to my employees that are not a monetary thing. Everyone wants more money, but people also want a really good work-life culture and balance. So being into a co-working space where there's a gym and there's coffee and there's tea and there's networking events and lunch and learns and different opportunities to just interact with all different people that are like-minded, it becomes really fun and fascinating. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I'm super happy about it. It's great for business.
Well, and also there's the product mix is something that we're seeing more and more of, right? Back to your collaboration is going, there's just different product types and if different needs out there as to how people want to work, right? And so, even one that we continue seeing grow based off of the remote hybrid work is there's more and more opportunities for team and meeting space, right? For events where people are now doing think tank sessions with their offsite teams that are coming together, or, some type of overall ability for there to be culture and everything else. And they're not always going to a corporate environment, right? They're trying to find something outside of corporate that is more convenient for everyone to come together from different parts. And so that's the part I love is about these immersives and these tours that we get to do for GWA and Juicy and all that. It's being able to see other product mix. How are people working and how are they doing it? How are they staffing them? Just what are the niches that are being created out there? And so, that's a really cool part and part of the evolution, right? And I tell people is, what? Because people are waiting for us to go back to how we used to work. And the example I always give are the laptop that I'm on and the iPhone that I'm sitting next to that you just showed me the picture of or of Adam and Miguel and the entire team, we're not going back to plugging into walls for data or for
I agree.
cell service or phone service, right? So the same things with work it's forever changed, right? And so people aren't rushing back. And so it's figuring out what do people really need and want? And I think people are still trying to figure that out.
I agree. And I think it's our job, and the three of us specifically, and the other, the leaders in the ecosystem, to help show companies what they need, right? People don't know what they need. You have to lead them there. And I think, there's people still think of this like co-working world as like beer on tap, hot desks everywhere, frat kids running around. Like that's not what it is anymore. And like, that was what it was during that time. And it was really fun. But now, like, don't get me wrong, I share stories, for how long do we have? But in reality, like now, like people value flexibility. People value having spaces globally without having to hold that on a P&L. People value having an office space and being able to step outside that office space and work in a common area and network and be able to take those breaks and work at a soft seating if they want to move away from their desk. People also value a much more premium product now. So it's like, yes, I still have like the sheetrock and the glass walls and the wood desk, but like that's like where we're at right now in Mindspace. But our next opening in the US is going to be a different type of product, a more premium product, right? So we're going to continue to drive that evolution, which is what we believe all of these larger companies and strategic growth size companies want to see as they also continue to grow and continue to bring their employees back to the office.
Okay, I'm going to dive into my business model question. Mark, I'm curious what you think about the events business. Do you call it host? Because, I mean, that was not part of WeWork, right? Like WeWork was pretty straightforward in terms of, they would have events, but not in the same way that you do now. And I think events can be a really great addition to the P&L, but they're like adjacent, but it's not the same business model at all. No. I'm curious how, because it's newer, like your San Francisco space doesn't have like dedicated.
Not really. No.
But Miami
a lot of our
does.
other locations, Miami does, New York does, DC does, and Philadelphia does. I think it's massive. I think it's untapped. I think the ability to host, and we do call it host, so the ability to host offsites and events for not only our members, but also for external parties to come use a space that is super creative and fun and unique to what they're normally used to is really exciting. And at the end of the day, our community managers are solely focused on, or I shouldn't say solely, but like a primary aspect of their role is to focus on hospitality and member experience. So if that changes from like hospitality and experience and an event and an offsite to hospitality and experience for an employee or an employer, like those two mesh very well together. Yeah. And when we have these large spaces, why not take advantage of them after hours, right? I mean, people want to come into a space. We actually have an offsite right now going on at 25 Kent in our Williamsburg location. The company is 2 blocks down the street from us in Williamsburg, but wanted to host an offsite that was not in their space because they wanted everyone to feel a different sort of like coming together and community. And they were like, wait, we can go to, one of the 5 hotels, and they're all like, we're in Williamsburg. They're all super trendy, cool hotels, boutique style, but they're still a hotel conference space. Or they were like, we could go to Mindspace and have this like loft style, exposed red brick, soft seating. There's going to be incredible working energy when we like take breakout spaces. And it's like, and they came and did this for 2 weeks now, or 2 days, excuse me. Like they're loving it. And that's the type of environment that we want to provide to not only people who are in the space, but also to the surrounding communities. Like we really try and integrate ourselves into the community where we have a location. It's never just about like you're 9 to 5, this is where you work, and then leave.
Well, the other side of it is the F&B component that comes with hotels, right? They all have a minimum F&B requirement.
Yeah.
And you're eating hotel food, right? I mean, it's just a step above hospital food, right? But ultimately you don't get to choose what you want to bring in. And I think that's what we get to do with event space and meeting space is going, and to whatever level, right? It's going, hey, we receive your food, we put it out. But then there's operators that literally replate everything onto wood serving dishes, and they're basically making everything look like it would in a hotel, but yet you're not paying that price, but you are paying a premium for the office space and the meeting space.
Absolutely. And it also, I mean, yes to all of that. And it also becomes a one-stop shop. And that's what we also like. Everyone will pay a premium for convenience and ease. So if I tell you, Giovanni, you could come host your offsite for 75 people here, we'll take care of coffee carts and pastries in the morning. We'll take care of some luncheon. We can host a happy hour for you in the afternoon, and we'll take care of Queen and everything. And here's one invoice and one number.
Totally.
So
Sign me up.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where do I sign? Wait, what about the vendor to bring in the chairs? Jamie, we got you. We have 500 chairs here. What do you need? Right. Well, what about this? We got you. We're all on top of that.
And it's beautiful and it's modern. And I'm looking at the Matterport for Williamsburg. I mean, it's fabulous. Yeah.
I agree.
Well, here's the other side. It's back to your point of feeling like you're outside of a corporate space. It's inviting. I mean, like, this is Warsaw, by the way. So it's really inviting to see and be able to be collaborative and to be thoughtful and to be disconnected from that corporate sterile environment where it's going, hey, we want people to be creative and feel that ability. And sometimes you have to be in special space in order to do that.
Yeah. I very much
agree. On a hard chair, on a soft couch or a bean bag or all kinds of crazy stuff, right?
Maybe a ping pong table. Who knows?
So talk to us about your running. You're a big runner, and I know you've done a bunch of really cool races.
I am. Funny enough, I actually officially accepted a bib today, about an hour before our podcast, for the 2025. So this year's New York City Marathon.
Wow.
So this will be my 8th marathon overall. It will be my 3rd time doing New York. I grew up watching the New York City Marathon. And I always joked with my mom that I wanted to be one of the top elite runners. And she would laugh at me I'm a Jewish kid from the Upper East Side. No matter how quick I am, I'm never going to be that quick. Let's be honest here. And then, I was in London during Hurricane Sandy, which was the first time in New York City Marathon history that the marathon got canceled. And I made a promise to myself and one of my, a buddy of mine from grad school, who I look at as an older brother. We're very, very competitive with each other. And we both said, if we're both back in New York next year, let's run the marathon. And we were both back in New York. I ended up joining and teaming up with a charity called Movember. They raise awareness for men's prostate and testicular cancer, men's health, men's suicide prevention, and overall men's health. It was their first marathon team they ever had as a charity spot. It was in 2013, and I ran it with them. I crossed the finish line. I gave my dad a huge hug. My dad had been diagnosed with prostate cancer earlier that year. And I said, get rid of cancer, because I'm not running another marathon. And he was fighting it. And then I ended up being out in London, and I went through a breakup, and I reached out to Movember, and I was like, do you guys have any spaces for the London Marathon? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, awesome, sign me up, ran it with them in London. My parents came out there, which was incredible. Dad continued to, go in and out of remission. So staying a part of Movember was really, really important to me. And I felt like I had this community to turn to of people that just understood what you were going through as you're watching a parent kind of go through this challenge. I crossed the London finish line. I immediately called my Movember contact. I was like, Berlin's in a couple of months. You got a spot? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, all right, sign it up. Let's run it back. And then I, realized that there was something called the 6 World Major Marathons. It was New York, Chicago, Boston, London, Tokyo, and Berlin. And I was like, I want to complete all 6 world majors. So ended up running the first 3 where my dad was there. And he got to see me run New York, London, and Berlin. And then, so I ran that with him, or he was there to cheer me on. And then I ended up running Chicago, Tokyo, and Boston in honor of him for different cancer charities, because Movember didn't have a spot at all of them. It's super incredible. And I just got addicted to this, trying to be better than your last race, right? Again, white Jewish kid, Upper East Side, never going to be the fastest. But I was like, I can always try and chase and be like a little bit better. And if I can do this, have fun, run all over the world and raise money for an incredible cause, like why not do it? So I crossed the finish line in Boston in 2019. It was like one of the first 5,000 finishers for people who got like all 6 world majors. I think the number's up to like 20,000 people right now. So it's like really cool to kind of be like an early adapter to that. I took about four years off, did a bunch of like half Ironmans because I still wanted to do something. And those were a lot of fun. Yeah, why not? Right? Like, sure. Don't run a marathon, do some halves, figure out how to swim and bicycle and then run. And then in 2023 or 2022, I was watching my friends run New York City again, and I started to get the itch. And I was like, you know what? 2023 will be the 10-year anniversary of when I first ran with Movember. I reached out to my contact and I was like, any chance you guys have a spot for me? And they were like, absolutely, like come on down. So I ran in 2023, which was a ton of fun. And then I didn't want to run last year. We had just had a child. My wife had just given birth. I did nothing but order as much sushi as she wanted after our daughter was born, and was trying to be supportive and tell her to breathe. So I kind of took the year off. And then this year I'm like, you know what, let's run it back. And I'll be taking the streets of New York City on November 2nd.
That's awesome.
I have so many questions. How do you make time to train when you're on the road so much?
Super early hours. I think like I'm part of the 5 a.m. club. I probably wake up at like 4:40 every morning, quickly answer a few emails, especially with, the US being 7 hours behind our HQ in Israel, go out for my run. And it's a great way to clear my head and just like focus, prioritize what I want to get through done, during the day. My training partner was my best man at my weddings, my best friend. We run every morning together. We're in the gym together. He also works in sales in a completely different field, but we have like a lot of the same like strategy of what we're thinking about. So it's a great way to bounce things off of each other. So I'll try and do that.
Treadmill or outside?
Always outside. We're about a half mile from Central Park. So it's a nice little warm up and then, run Central Park. And then when I'm traveling, and I'll challenge anyone who disagrees, I think the best way to get to learn and see a city is through running it. And I've run in India, I've run in San Francisco, I've run in Shanghai, I've run in Bangkok, in Hanoi, like all of these cities. And like, I have like photos of me, like, I love to run in the streets. And when you're in Asia, like you don't really have too many sidewalks. So I'm like, one Sunday morning, I'm running in Shanghai and I pull up to like a red light and there are all these local guys on their scooters, smoking, like chain smoking cigarettes at 7 a.m. And then I'm just like looking around, like shirtless, like, all right, yeah, let's like the white boy's here to run. All right, let's do this. And it's been a lot of fun, but it's a great way to see and explore cities. And it's something that I've also been able to do with like team members who also like to run. We brought all of our market leaders out to Amsterdam in September. And myself and our head of international markets, as well as our GM for London, we all woke up one morning and like we went on like, a 4-mile run. We just got to shoot the shit and chat a little bit. And it's just a great way to like hang out with someone while being a little bit active. And especially when you're traveling and on the road, it's like you need to sweat a little bit.
It's awesome. What's your daughter's name?
Noah, N-O-A, named after my dad, Norman.
So when Noah gets old enough to be able to have a conversation about your dad, Norman, and she asks about grandpa, what are the 3 things you're going to tell her you love most about him?
We're going deep here. Wow. I was not prepared for that question.
Armpits getting sweaty?
Yeah, right. It's like, oh God, jeez, unbutton a shirt here. Always, he was always genuine. I think one of the things about my dad was that if you were talking to him, even if you had just met him, you automatically felt like you were his best friend. He listened, he opened up, he shared, he gave advice, even if it was unsolicited, and he just wanted to help. He wanted to connect and really like make you feel like, you were the most important thing at that given moment. And I want Noah to be able to like really help drive that home as she continues to grow older. I think he was really, really good at not wasting energy on stupid things. I think he thought a lot about stupid things And he did some probably silly things, of course. He'd blame it on the Quaaludes back in the 70s. But at the end of the day, he was really good at being like, you know what, I don't want to do that. So I'm just not going to do that. I don't need to do that. And he was really, really intentional with how he spent his time and who he spent it with. And I think that also played into the first act of like being someone's best friend. But I hope that's something that Noah takes on. And then third and final thing, which is really the most important, and it's probably now my mantra, is that life isn't a dress rehearsal. We only get to live once. Like, this is our opportunity and you have to make the most of it. I mean, there was like literally, you know, my dad passed away on Monday, and the Friday before we took him to the hospital to get a blood transfusion. And the whole reason he wanted to make it to Monday was because the banks were closed already on Friday. And he wanted to make sure he could call the bank to pay off the rest of the car loan. So it was something that my mom and I didn't have to worry about. Like, my dad knew the fact that we were in like the last, like, call it like days, right? Hours even of his life. And he's like, I just need to make it to the next working day so that I can deal with this. Now, in like classic, like Norman form, Monday was actually a bank holiday. It was Martin Luther King Day. So like the car places and the banks weren't open anyway. So he couldn't have done it. But it was like, that was just like who he was. And it was like, we take him to the hospital and the doctor comes in, you know, doctors come in every day. And, how are you? I was like, I'm great. I've lived a great life. My wife is here. My son is here. Can't ask for anything more. Like, we got to do what we got to do here. And it's like that entire mantra of just like how someone should live their life is everything that I hope Noah gets.
Well, Mark, the reality is you're living your dad's legacy, right? And you're showing Noah that, right? Because if you think back to what I said earlier, is you made me feel like we'd been friends for a long time, right? And you went out of your way to open the doors to your space and welcomed complete strangers in that were there for an event, not once, but twice, right? You did it once for the happy hour and then once for the tours.
Yeah.
And then the other part is your mantra, right? Is always say yes, right? That's one of your deals. And so I read that. And so it's so interesting that, you know, without knowing it, your dad is basically imprinted and, you know, what the legacy you get to live every day. And that's what Noah's seen through you. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Gio, Noah's birthday's tomorrow.
Yes, it is. Yeah. She turns one.
She turns one. They're doing pizza and beers in the park.
And Noah's favorite. IPAs and some pepperoni slices. You know, the 1-year-old knows what she wants.
That's awesome.
Totally.
So, well, going back to growth, kind of what is in your mind, what is the network look like in the US? In a perfect
what does the network look like?
The network of your locations. Do you keep growing in different cities? Do you start growing, you know, kind of a hub and spoke model in existing cities? What's your strategy and vision?
I think right now it's really doubled down in San Francisco and New York City. I think I think San Francisco's still a little bit behind the whole like back to work and back to office mode that New York is in, probably, you know, 9-12 months behind, but like quickly picking up. I think it's doubled down in Manhattan. I think it's continued to grow and expand in San Francisco. And then it's kind of play everything out, right? I think Miami has a ton of potential, but I've always seen Miami be a tough market to underwrite deals in, which end up getting operators into a lot of trouble. So if we can find the right location and the right partner in Miami, I definitely want to continue growing there. I believe we should have more than 2 locations, but we're not rushing there by any means because we want to be very, very methodical and strategic on how we grow this business. And it's something that Dan, our CEO and co-founder, and I spoke a ton about, not only in my interviews, but as we continue to really grow. Like, we're not going to rush to take a building. And if it's not the right building, if it doesn't hit every metric we want, we'll wait and we'll frustrate brokers, we'll frustrate landlords. I get it. But like, we're going to set ourselves up for success. And this is super, super important to us and the success of the overall business. So I think for the next kind of like 2 to 3 years, it's East Coast, West Coast, or like New York City, San Francisco, definitely continuing to keep eyes on Miami. And then I think it's continuing to look at like some of these other submarkets. I don't think we need to be in every submarket. As much as I would love to have 75 locations across the US, like that's not necessarily what's going to help us succeed. But if there are submarkets that are continuing to grow, people are talking a lot about Nashville. If we think it makes sense to have 1 or 2 in Nashville, then we should look at that as the time comes, right? If Austin isn't completely saturated and there's an opportunity for us to drive some value there, then I definitely want to take a look, right? Dallas has definitely come up once or twice. There's some places in Southern California that I'm looking at that I'm interested in. So it really I think that's really what we're thinking about right now.
Yeah, there's a ton of opportunity out there, right? As there's more product mix
100%.
and opportunities for the hospitality component.
And the flight to quality. I think we're still light on really unique, beautiful locations that are heavy on hospitality. So looking forward to it. Okay, Gio, I'm going to ask you my wrap-up question. Mark, we hope
Jamie.
that we will continue to see you out and about at industry events. And it didn't happen at Immersive, but quite often there's some karaoke involved. So what is Mark's karaoke song?
Mark loves karaoke.
I had a suspicion.
Love Story by Taylor Swift.
Ooh.
I mean, it is just a phenomenal song. And like, if you do it at the right time, the entire group absolutely loves it. I mean, and then any really 90s boy band song is also going to be a great hit. And then once you get on the mic, like everyone's a little hesitant at first. And then once you start having a couple of beverages and you start singing, everyone is there just like, so there you have it.
I may or may not have video of some of these events, and I was
I
forced
had to tell Gio to
delete them.
take down the footage of me doing karaoke in Dallas, actually, after a couple of mango margaritas with Nick Clark.
God.
Okay, we'll consider yourself recruited.
Done.
So, okay.
Accepted.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Happy birthday
Of
to Noah.
course. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me. And I'm so happy we got to meet in person. I'm so happy we got to open up the doors in San Francisco. We got 5 other locations that we need to be able to host you guys at. And obviously, whenever you guys are in New York, let me know. We need to get together.
Sure.
Awesome.
Look forward to it.
Thanks, Mark.
Amazing. Thank you.